She is a familiar face to many in our region. For more than 15 years, Frances Scott covered the news as an anchor and a reporter for a handful of TV stations, including right here at WDBJ-7.
As Tim Saunders shows us, she's now using her skills to fight for change in Washington. She has more in this special report.
In front of the camera, that's where Frances Scott found her calling. Whether she was sitting behind the anchor desk or covering stories from the field, Scott says journalism was her life's passion.
I'm really curious, and I love writing, and I love people, so it was just the perfect career for me.
In the span of 15 years, Scott reported or anchored for every television station in the Roanoke-Lynchburg area. She got her start at WDBJ-7.
Frances Scott, News 7, Blacksburg.
That was where I did my first internship.
After years of working her way up the ladder, Scott accomplished the dream of many in television news, landing a high-paying job in a large city. For years, she was a main anchor at television station WTVD in the Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina.
I was our main anchor in Raleigh, one of 4 evening anchors, and I was very happy.
There was a lot to be happy about. She had 3 children and a home on a lake. Her work was recognized with an Emmy. But quietly, she was suffering with pain, slowly growing in her hips.
I went to a couple of orthopedics, and they said, you know, we see that maybe you were born without sockets.
Scott loved being active, running, dancing, and playing every sport she could. But she was living with a hip abnormality that caused extreme physical activity to slowly wear down her joints. Doctors compared her hips to a set of tires running on a car that was out of alignment.
Your tires had bad alignment, and then you put high miles on them, and they're worn out.
Losing the ability to do the things she loved, Scott made a tough decision in 2011. At the age of 39, she underwent a double hip replacement. Surgeons installed a product called Pinnacle with Ultimate Liner, metal-on-metal hips manufactured by DePuy Orthopedics.
I wanted my life back, and most of the surgeons said, you'll get your life back.
Scott filed a federal lawsuit against DePuy in 2014, claiming she suffered loss of mobility, along with physical pain and mental anguish as a result of her surgery.
My first inclination that anything was wrong is I went back to PT, and my physical therapist said, how would that last weekend go? And I said, well, it was pretty bad. I had to take the stronger painkillers. And she kind of stopped, and she's like, oh, you shouldn't need those at this point.
In her federal complaint, Scott said that after her surgery, friction and wear of her metal hip liner caused large amounts of cobalt chromium to enter her blood and tissue, causing severe pain and discomfort.
I started wanting to not leave the house, and I just had a lot of shame about why I wasn't doing well.
On its website, the Food and Drug Administration says there's a risk of metal ions like cobalt and chromium entering the bloodstream of patients with metal-on-metal hip implants. Different people will react to these metal ions and particles in a different way, reads the FDA's online statement. At this time, it's not possible to predict who will experience a reaction, what type of reaction they might have, when the reaction will occur, or how severe the reaction will be. Johnson & Johnson and DePuy Orthopedics pulled their Pinnacle with Ultimate Liner from the market in 2013, 2 years after Scott's surgery. In a statement to WDBJ-7, a spokeswoman for DePuy said the decision to discontinue Ultimate Metal-on-Metal was not related to safety, adding, Ultimate Metal-on-Metal is backed by a strong record of clinical data showing reduced pain and restored mobility for patients suffering from chronic hip pain. 1 year after her surgery, Scott left television news.
So I tried to go back to work. I hurt all the time, and I just realized I can't do this. And we didn't know what was wrong, so I thought, well, I need to just double down, quit work, and really spend time on physical therapy.
She underwent a second surgery 5 years after the first to remove the Pinnacle with Ultimate product. Today, she lives in Texas, where her life has taken on a new focus.
I can't get my career back or life savings, the house, or the life we had, but I'm interested now in just preventing this from happening to anyone else.
Scott is working with others who say they've suffered complications from medical device implants to lobby for change. Last week, she traveled from Texas to Washington to speak directly with lawmakers. She wants the Food and Drug Administration to give medical devices the same scrutiny pharmaceuticals receive before they're allowed to be sold in the United States.
How medical devices get to market is wildly different than how drugs get to market.
DePuy told WDBJ-7 our Our medical devices undergo extensive laboratory testing before they're submitted to government health experts for a science-based review. And we continue to analyze information such as clinical data and adverse event reports once a device is on the market. At one time, she made a living by telling other people's stories. Now, Scott says she's getting back to living by telling a story of her own.
This will hurt people for generations if we don't get it fixed.
In Washington, Tim Saunders, WDBJ-7.
You can read more about this story online. We've posted Scott's entire lawsuit and the full statement we've received from DePuy Orthopedics up on WDBJ7.com.